Hello, students. Today we're going to review the crosswalk from the old stock project rubric to the new one. So I know I already released the new one and the old one, and the new one has a lot of very similar components. However, its essential structure and grading style are different. So if you've already started with the original stock project, you're going to need all the basic data and the downloads and the information that you already found. So let's start with the course objective of the new project rubric. So we're going to describe the business organization, structure, roles, and responsibilities of the company. We're going to analyze the financials, market position, ethics, marketing plan, employment opportunities, and other aspects of a publicly traded company. Okay, well, we don't exactly know what that means because it's very high level at this point, but we're going to break this down into its different parts and components and see how the old stock project fits in to these requirements. So, part one, company description and history, mirrors the number one, company description. So when you are in finance.yahoo.com and you type in your stock project and you scroll down on the main page, you'll see the company description that comes directly from the company that you've chosen. So it ought to clearly describe the type of business, industry, products and service, and management roles. If it does not, then you'll need to fill in those components, and you can find this information on the company's website. Company history and overview, also including the milestones. This should be located on most public companies' websites. It just needs a list of the major, when the company started, when they went IPO, when they hit a significant dollar amount in annual revenue, and so forth. The point about sources and clarity, you'll see this in several sections. So what you want to do is annotate your sources within the documentation and just make sure, if you have the company history and it came from the company website, make sure that it is referenced in parentheses in the abbreviated source and that the full source is at the end of the document. So you'll need to cite your sources within the document text. All right, let's move on. Part two, financial statements. So this includes the accurate balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement with explanation of purpose. Here we can see in section 2, current annual financial statements. And if you are in sec.gov/EDGAR, you can find this full text information. I've also walked through it in the original stock project video. So you'll need to copy and paste the actual balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statements into your final report. Make sure that the documentation is clear, that the last statement year closing or the year ending for the statement is clear on your documents, and that it's well defined whether this is an annual statement, which is the requirement. So you want to demonstrate how the statements interrelate. So assets, liabilities, and equity, you can find this information in chapter 14 and 15, which I've made available on Blackboard. This just states how the information interrelates between the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statements and what they represent. Overall, part of the grading criteria is that it has a clear layout, labeled sections, and that the sources are cited. So again, make sure that you thumbnail the source and then have it in the list at the end of the document. Part 3, Auditor's Opinion, is the full auditor's opinion excerpt and identifies the firm. So when you copy and paste your auditor's opinion statement from their 10K, make sure that you write who is collecting the statement. And then in interpretation of management accountability. So you want to interpret the opinion about the financial reliability and management responsibility. We talked about this in the old stock project walkthrough video, which said either the auditor's opinion statement relates that it has accurate information or that it has the information may have one or more errors in it, or if the auditor's opinion statement is missing, or they explicitly state that they are not endorsing the financial statements of the company, then that lowers the credibility of the company financials. So make sure that you're able to explain this clearly and concisely in your paper. For financial ratios, it specifically lists the current ratio, PE ratio, and EPS with interpretation. So when you are finding and commenting on the current ratio, the PE ratio, you'll again use the trailing PE ratio based on the last 12 months and the earnings per share. So the interpretation is understanding if the PE ratio is positive or negative for the firm and what it says about that specific company and its placement in the overall industry. You'll do the same thing with the current ratio and the EPS. After that, you'll summarize the overall market position and condition that may be tying those ratios into their certain segments. So, for example, if a current ratio is positive, then it would say that they're covering their current debts with the current income. If it's not, then you might explain that the economic downturn has affected your company's industry and the company itself, and in what ways. Make sure the data figures are clearly sourced and current. So you may use the current ratio, PE ratio, and EPS ratios that are available on Yahoo. The 6-month and 12-month versions are usually locked down to a subscription. So please only give the most current source that you have available. Stock chart and trend analysis. So this is again the 12-month chart with labels and time frame. You'll need to analyze the different trends in significant upward trends or significant downward trends and the overall stock valuation. Do you believe it's a fair valuation? Do you believe it's overvalued or undervalued? And give an explanation. As with the other sections, you want to thumbnail your sources and reference them numerically for the bibliography at the end. Part 6, Company Analysis. This mirrors the original personal part of the analysis at the in the red letter in the first stock project rubric. So you'll want to give an overall findings as far as the company's stability and whether it is trending upward or downward, and what thoughts are about the future, the market position and innovation. So evaluate some of the key leadership positions, some recent innovations, and competition. So make sure that you have data to support this and that you cite all of your references unless they are opinions. For management structure and effectiveness, assess the performance, assess the roles that the leadership has played and whether they've been positive or negative to the overall company, and the accountability. This can be related to the company's ethics or accountability to its stockholders or accountability to its customers. Make sure that the data and the external analysis is used effectively. Do your homework. Read all about your company. Find interesting and useful information that you can put into your project and then reference that appropriately. As an additional assessment, critical thinking and synthesis across factors will be demonstrated. So, for example, understanding the financial statements, understanding the key indicators, and getting some background and some recurrent events on the company, and being able to build, to analyze this and build credible outcomes for that information based on the data. Part 7, Personal Opinion and Ethical Evaluation. So this also translates to the personal analysis, whether when it asks, is the company a good corporate citizen or does it have good ethics? So you are going to evaluate the ethical conduct and social responsibility and give several examples to support your reasoning. Would answer the question on whether you would work for or compete against the firm and give reasoning why. You do not have to support your reasoning unless they are direct quotes or analytics from the texts. Investment decision analysis. So, given everything that you've learned about the company through the course of the project, decide whether or not you would invest or whether you would recommend someone else invest in the company based on these findings. And then, as always, make sure that it is well reasoned and clearly written. Lastly, 10% of your grade will be tied to formatting, organization, and sources. So make sure that you have a cover page, that you have a table of contents, and that all the different parts within the document are labeled. So when we are in the financial statement section, you would label that with a header financial statements. Citation and integrity. So you can choose any type of formatting that you want to use or prefer to use. And then I will check to make sure that nothing is plagiarized. Plagiarism can be taking an excerpt or a large body of work from another source and not citing it. So if you're not citing sources in your work, then this can be a cause for plagiarism. Also, make sure that you have the full citation in a bibliography at the end of the document. So if you choose one of these formatting methods, put your different sources and plug it into AI, it will spit out the correct formatting that you need for this project. Lastly, you want to have clear writing, spelling, and formatting consistent with business standards. It is not appropriate to use AI to source information. You can use it for ideation and to find credible sources and documents that you can use for input for this assignment. It is not appropriate to ask or to give instructions for the assignment and ask AI to create content for you. That is the new stock project. Again, please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns, or we can set up a one-on-one, or you can attend the Zoom meeting to ask some questions or to gain clarity on anything that I may have missed. So thank you guys. Good luck with your stock projects.